The stars shone bright against the black void of space. The HFY Pioneer, a sleek human ship, moved slowly through the darkness. Captain Taiwan Kim stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the main screen. "Sir, we're picking up an unknown signal," said Jewry Park, the communications officer. Her fingers moved quickly over her console. "It's not matching any Earth patterns." Captain Kim nodded. "This could be it. First contact." His voice was calm, but his heart beat faster. After years of searching, they had found signs of alien life. "Put us on yellow alert," he ordered, "but keep weapons systems offline. We're here to make friends, not enemies." The crew worked quietly as the Pioneer approached the source of the signal. Suddenly, a massive ship appeared on their scanners. It was 3 times the size of the Pioneer, with sharp angles and a dark metal hull that seemed to swallow light. "Sir, they're hailing us," Jewry said. "Open the channel," Kim replied. The screen flickered to life, showing a tall, gray-skinned alien. Its eyes were large and completely black. When it spoke, its mouth barely moved, but the ship's computer translated. "I am Supreme Commander Vrek of the Drath Empire. You have entered our territory. Identify yourselves." Captain Kim stood straight. "I am Captain Taiwan Kim of the United Earthship Pioneer. We come in peace, seeking friendship and knowledge." Vrek's black eyes narrowed. "Your ship appears to have minimal defenses. Is Earth similarly unprepared?" "We focus on exploration, not war," Kim answered carefully. "But we can defend ourselves if needed." "Then you will provide the coordinates of your homeworld for inspection," Vrek demanded. Kim shook his head. "I'm afraid I cannot do that without proper diplomatic protocols in place. Perhaps we could meet to discuss." "Refusal is not acceptable," Vrek cut him off. "Your primitive species has technology we find useful. You will submit or be destroyed." Before Kim could respond, the bridge shook violently. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. "They're firing on us," shouted Hyun Soo Kang, the chief engineer. "Direct hit to our port side." "Raise shields," Kim ordered. Evasive maneuvers. The Pioneer turned sharply, trying to escape the much larger draft ship. But the alien vessel was surprisingly fast. Another blast hit them, and several consoles exploded in showers of sparks. "Shields at 40%, called out Min Ji-yoon from the science station. "We can't take much more." Captain Kim made a quick decision. "Launch escape pods from sections 3 through 7. Get as many crew out as possible." He turned to Jewry. "Send a distress signal to Earth. Tell them everything." As the ship rocked with another hit, Jewry worked frantically at her station. "Signal sent, sir." "Good," Kim said. He pressed a hidden button under his command chair, activating a quantum beacon that would help Earth forces find them. "Now get to an escape pod." "What about you, sir?" she asked. "I'll hold them off as long as I can," he said. "Now go." The bridge crew reluctantly left their stations. Jewry was the last to go, looking back at her captain with worried eyes before running to the escape pods. Left alone on the bridge, Captain Kim watched as the draft ship came closer. Another hit made the ceiling collapse partially. Through the falling debris, he saw the screen light up with Vrek's face again. "Your ship is disabled. Prepare to be boarded," the alien commander said. As armed Drath soldiers cut through the Pioneer's hull, Captain Kim stood tall on his broken bridge. The Drath had made a terrible mistake. They thought humans were weak because their ship was not heavily armed. They would soon learn how wrong they were. The last thing Captain Kim saw before the Drath stunned him was a small escape pod successfully launching away from the ship, carrying the hope that Earth would soon know what happened here. And when Earth found out, the Drath would regret this day. Admiral Sung-Ho Lee stood in the dark command center on Earth. The large screen in front of him showed the final moments of the HFY Pioneer's distress signal. His face remained calm, but his eyes burned with anger. "Play it again," he ordered. The screen flickered, showing Jewry Park's scared face. This is UES Pioneer. We are under attack by an alien force called the Drath Empire. They have superior firepower and have. Static cut through her words. Captain Kim refused to give Earth's location. They're boarding us now. We need help. Our coordinates are. The message ended in a burst of noise. Admiral Lee turned to the room full of military officers. The Pioneer was just an explorer ship. The Drath think that's all we have. He walked to a control panel and pressed his hand against it. A hidden door in the wall slid open, revealing a massive holographic display of Earth's true fleet. They have no idea what's coming for them, he said. Commander Ji-Woo Choi, a young tactical officer known for her brilliant mind, stepped forward. Sir, I recommend deploying the Ghost Fleet. Several older officers looked surprised. Colonel Han raised his eyebrows. The phase shift technology is still experimental. We've never used it in actual combat, which makes it perfect, Commander Choi replied. The Drath won't expect ships that can partially exist outside normal space. They won't be able to track or target them effectively. Admiral Lee nodded slowly. Prepare all ships. The main battle group will approach directly. The Ghost Fleet will circle behind and attack from their blind side. As the command center burst into activity, Admiral Lee looked at the last frozen image of the Pioneer. We're coming, Captain Kim, he whispered. On the Drath flagship, Engineer Hyun-Soo Kang was thrown into a cell with 3 other crew members from the Pioneer. The cell was dark, with only a dim purple light that hurt his eyes. Are you hurt? Asked a voice. It was Dr. Min Ji-yoon, the ship's science officer. Just my pride, Kang answered, sitting up. They think we're primitives. Dr. Yoon moved closer. I've noticed something strange. When the guards change shifts, there's a moment when they seem almost blind. Kang thought for a moment. The light changes from purple to blue for a few seconds during shift change. Exactly, Dr. Yoon said quietly. I think they can't see certain light spectrums that are visible to us. Blue light might be invisible to them. Kang's eyes widened. That's why their ship has no blue lighting anywhere. That could be useful information, if we could tell someone. A third prisoner spoke up. It was Do-Gyun Kang, the navigation officer. Some escape pods got away. My brother was on one of them. And Captain Kim activated something before he was captured. Hyun-Soo added. I saw him press the hidden control under his chair. The quantum beacon, Dr. Yoon whispered. Earth will find us. The cell door slid open suddenly. 2 Drath guards entered, their gray skin looking almost metallic under the purple light. You! One guard pointed at Hyun-Soo. Supreme Commander Vrek wants to see your ship's engine room. You will explain how it works. As Hyun-Soo was led away, he caught Dr. Yoon's eye. She nodded slightly. They would each gather what information they could. In the escape pod floating among the asteroids, Navigation Officer Do-Hyun's brother, Ta-Jun Kang, worked on the damaged communication system. 4 other crew members watched anxiously. Anything? Asked Juri Park. Not yet, Tai-Jun replied. But I can fix it. Suddenly, a shadow passed over the pod's small window. A Drath patrol ship was searching the asteroid field. Everyone be quiet, Juri whispered. They held their breath as the Drath ship moved slowly past their hiding spot. When it was gone, Tai-Jun went back to work on the communicator. Earth needs to know what we found out, he said. They need to know what we're up against. What he didn't say was that the Drath needed to worry more about what they were up against. Earth wasn't the defenseless planet the Drath believed it to be. When Earth's fleet arrived, the Drath would learn just how wrong they were. In the darkness of space, Tai-Jun finally connected the last wire. The communicator hummed to life. This is UES Pioneer Escape Pod 3, he said into the microphone. Earth Fleet Command, do you read us? The response was immediate. We read you, Pioneer. Help is already on the way. Dr. Min Ji-yoon sat quietly in her cell, watching the Drath guards. For 3 days, she had been studying their movements and habits. The aliens thought humans were simple and weak. This was their first mistake. When the guards brought food, Minji pretended to be scared. She kept her head down and her shoulders hunched. But her eyes missed nothing. She noticed how the draft blinked slowly when the lighting changed. She saw how they turned their heads to see things at certain angles. Tonight, she whispered to the other prisoners when the guards left. "We move tonight." Do-hyun nodded. "What's the plan?" Minji pulled something from her boot, a small container of chemicals she had slowly collected from their food and the cell materials. "When mixed with water, this will create a bright blue flash," she explained. "The draft can't see blue light well. It will blind them temporarily, but we'll still be able to see." "How did you make that?" asked another prisoner, his eyes wide. Minji smiled. "I'm a science officer. This is what I do." Captain Ta-won Kim sat in a special holding cell on the draft flagship's command level. His uniform was torn, and a bruise darkened his left cheek. Supreme Commander Vrek paced in front of him. "Your ship's technology is primitive," Vrek said. "Yet you refuse to tell us about Earth's defenses. Are they even worse?" Kim looked up with steady eyes. "Why don't you go find out?" Vrek slammed his fist against the wall. "Your species is new to space travel. The Drath Empire has conquered 12 worlds. We have technology you cannot imagine." "And yet," Kim said calmly, "here you are, trying to get information from me. If you were so sure of your superiority, you wouldn't need to ask." Vrek's black eyes narrowed. "We will find your Earth. And when we do, we will show your people true power." As Vrek left, Kim allowed himself a small smile. The Drath commander had revealed something important. They still didn't know Earth's location. The distress signal must have been cut off before the coordinates were sent. There was still time. In the asteroid field, Tai-jun Kang and the escape pod survivors were moving carefully through space. Their small pod had limited fuel, but Tai-jun had a plan. "There's a Drath scout ship patrolling this sector," he told the others. "If we can get close enough, we might be able to take it." Ju-rae looked doubtful. "With just the 5 of us, against armed Drath soldiers. They don't expect us to attack," Tai-jun said. "Surprise is our advantage." They guided their pod behind a large asteroid and waited. Soon, the Drath scout ship passed nearby, scanning the area slowly. "Now," Tai-jun whispered, even though the Drath couldn't hear them. He fired the pod's small thrusters, moving them silently toward the scout ship's docking bay. The Drath didn't notice them until they were already attaching to the outer hull. "Get ready," Tai-jun said as he overrode the airlock controls with a device he had built from the pod's broken parts. Back on the Drath flagship, Minji waited until the guards changed shifts. When the lighting briefly changed, she nodded to Do-hyun. "Now," she whispered. Minji threw her chemical mixture at the cell door just as it opened. A bright blue flash filled the room. The Drath guards screamed, covering their eyes. They could see nothing. The human prisoners, able to see perfectly in the blue light, rushed forward. Do-hyun grabbed a weapon from the blinded guard, while Minji led the others out of the cell. "This way," she said. "Hyun-soo is being held near the engine room. We need to get him first." As they moved through the corridors, avoiding Drath patrols, an alarm began to sound. "What's happening?" Do-hyun asked. Minji checked a control panel on the wall. Her eyes widened. "The Drath have detected multiple ships entering the system," she said. "Large ships." Do-hyun smiled for the first time in days. "Earth found us." Minji nodded. "And from the way the Drath are reacting, I'd say our fleet is bigger than they expected." The humans moved faster through the ship. They needed to free the other prisoners before the real battle began, because when Earth's fleet arrived, everything would change. Admiral Sung-ho Lee stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, Earth's most powerful warship. 3 battle groups of 5 ships each followed behind him. The ships were large, dark, and shaped like arrows. Unlike the explorer ships that the Drath had seen, these were built for war. "Status report," Admiral Lee ordered. "All systems ready, sir," replied his second-in-command. "The Ghost Fleet is in position." Admiral Lee nodded. The 12 Ghost Fleet ships were already ahead of them, invisible to both eyes and sensors. They used new technology that allowed them to exist partly in another space. The Drath would not see them coming. "Lieutenant Hejun Park, are you ready?" the Admiral asked. A young officer looked up from his special console. "Yes, sir. My team has already entered their communication systems. We can see all their messages, but they can't see ours." Admiral Lee smiled slightly. "Good. Let them know we're coming now." Lieutenant Park pressed a button. On every draft ship in the system, the same message appeared on their screens. It was simple: return our people. Leave this system, or be destroyed. On the draft flagship, Supreme Commander Vrek stared at the message with anger. "What is this?" he shouted. "How did they hack our systems?" A draft officer looked at his scanner with confusion. "Commander, we detect large ships entering the system. They are much larger than the vessel we captured." "Show me," Vrek demanded. The screen changed to show 3 groups of massive warships moving toward them. They were unlike the simple explorer ship the Drath had attacked. These were clearly built for battle. "Impossible," Vrek whispered. "Their technology was primitive." "Sir, the human ships are using drive systems we don't understand," another officer reported. "They're moving in ways that break our physics models." Vrek's black eyes narrowed. It was a trick. The explorer ship was a decoy. He turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare all weapons. Launch all fighter ships. We will show these humans the power of the Drath Empire." In the corridors of the flagship, Min-ji, Du-hyun, and the other escaped prisoners had found Hyun-Soo Kang. They were making their way toward the ship's hangar, hoping to steal a small ship. "We need to hurry," Hyun-Soo said. "I overheard the Drath officers. They're preparing for battle." "Our fleet is here," Min-ji told him. "And from what I saw on their screens, it's not just an explorer fleet." Do-hyun smiled. "The Drath thought all our ships were like the Pioneer. They have no idea what's coming." As they turned a corner, they nearly ran into Captain Kim. He was being moved by 2 guards. When he saw his crew, his eyes widened slightly, but his face remained calm. Min-ji didn't hesitate. She threw her last chemical mixture at the guards. Blue light flashed, and the Drath screamed in pain, dropping to their knees. Do-hyun quickly knocked them out and freed the captain. "Good to see you all," Kim said with a smile. "I assume you have a plan. Get to the hangar, steal a ship, join our fleet," Min-ji explained. "Simple. I like it," the captain replied. "Let's go." In space, the UES Vengeance moved steadily forward. The Drath had launched hundreds of fighter ships, forming a wall between the human fleet and their main vessels. "They still think this is a fair fight," Admiral Lee said quietly. He pressed a button on his chair. "Commander Choi, you may begin." In the emptiness of space around the Drath ships, something changed. 12 human ships suddenly appeared, as if stepping out of invisible doorways. They were inside the Drath defense line, directly among their main ships. On the Drath command ship, alarm screamed. "Where did they come from?" Vrek shouted. "How did they get past our sensors?" The human ghost fleet opened fire. Their weapons were not simple lasers or missiles. They fired streams of controlled gravity that tore through Drath shields as if they weren't there. As the first Drath ships exploded, Supreme Commander Vrek finally understood. The humans had been hiding their true technology all along. They had never been primitive. The real battle was just beginning, and it was already too late for the Drath. Supreme Commander Vrek watched in horror as 3 of his best ships exploded. The human ghost fleet moved like nothing he had ever seen. When his weapons fired at them, half the shots passed right through as if hitting nothing but air. "What kind of technology is this?" he demanded. Unknown, sir, a draft officer replied, his voice shaking. Their ships seem to exist in two places at once. Another officer called out, Commander, our sensors are failing. We can't lock onto their ships. Vrek slammed his fist on his command chair. Send all ships to surround them. They cannot be ghosts. They must be solid somewhere. But even as he gave the order, the main human fleet began to advance. The UES Vengeance led the way, its massive weapons charging with a blue light that the draft sensors couldn't properly see. Captain Kim and his crew ran through the corridors of the draft flagship. Alarms blared all around them. The hangar is just ahead, Hyun-soo said, pointing forward. As they turned the corner, they saw the hangar entrance. It was guarded by 4 draft soldiers, all looking nervous as battle reports came in. We need a distraction, Kim whispered. Min-jae looked at the ceiling. The light controls are there. If I can change them to blue. Do it, Kim ordered. Min-jae carefully adjusted a small device she had made from parts in her pocket. She aimed it at the control panel above the guards and pressed a button. Suddenly, the lights in the corridor turned bright blue. The draft guards cried out in pain, covering their eyes. The humans, able to see perfectly, rushed forward and quickly knocked them out. Let's take that one, Kim said, pointing to a small, fast-looking ship in the hangar. It should be big enough for all of us. As they ran toward the ship, the entire flagship shook violently. Something had hit it hard. Our fleet is getting closer, Do-hyun said with a smile. Admiral Lee watched the battle from the bridge of the Vengeance. The Ghost Fleet had already destroyed 5 draft ships and was moving to attack more. Sir, we're picking up a transmission from inside the draft flagship, Lieutenant Park reported. It's Captain Kim. Put him through, Lee ordered. Captain Kim's voice came through, slightly broken by static. Admiral, this is Captain Kim. We've escaped and are taking a draft scout ship. Request safe passage through the battle zone. Granted, Captain, Admiral Lee replied. Follow these coordinates. We'll open a path for you. Lee turned to his weapons officer. Target the draft flagship's engines. Disable them, but don't destroy the ship yet. I want to talk to their commander. On the draft flagship, Vrek was now in full panic. Half his fleet was gone or heavily damaged. The human weapons cut through their shields like they weren't there. And now his own flagship couldn't move. Sir, our engines are hit, an officer reported. We're dead in space. How? Vrek demanded. How can they be so powerful? Their explorer ship was nothing like this. Just then, a small ship launched from his flagship's hangar. Sir, a scout ship is escaping. It has human life signs aboard. Vrek watched helplessly as the small ship flew straight toward the human fleet. The massive human ships opened a path for it, protecting it as it passed through. Sir, we're being hailed by the human commander, the communications officer said. Vrek took a deep breath and straightened his uniform. He had never faced defeat before. Put them through. Admiral Lee's face appeared on the screen. He looked calm and confident. Supreme Commander Vrek, Lee said, I am Admiral Sung-Ho Lee of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You have attacked one of our ships and taken our people prisoner. This was a mistake. Your people showed primitive technology, Vrek argued. How were we to know? That we have better ships, Lee finished for him. We keep our best technology hidden, Commander. What you saw was what we wanted you to see. Vrek suddenly understood. The explorer ship was bait. Lee's face remained calm. No, it was truly an explorer, but we don't send our warships first. We observe, we learn, and we prepare. You should have done the same. The Admiral's words were simple, but the message was clear. The draft had judged too quickly, attacked too eagerly, and now they were paying the price. As Vrek looked at the human fleet surrounding his remaining ships, he knew the battle was already over. It had been over from the moment the humans arrived. Commander Ji Woo-choi stood on the bridge of her Ghost Fleet flagship, the UES Shadow. Her ship existed in two states at once, partly in normal space and partly in what scientists called phase space. This made it nearly impossible for the draft to target. "Status report," she ordered calmly. "3 more draft ships disabled, Commander," her tactical officer replied. "They still can't lock weapons on us properly. Half their shots pass right through our phase field." Jai Wu nodded. The phase shift technology had been a closely guarded Earth secret for 10 years. Today was its first real combat test, and it was working perfectly. "Prepare to deploy the blue spectrum weapons," she ordered. "Let's use their weakness against them." The tactical officer pressed several buttons on his console. "Blue spectrum weapons ready, Commander." "Fire." From the Ghost Fleet ships, beams of intense blue light shot out in all directions. To humans, it looked like bright blue lasers, but to the draft, it was as if parts of space suddenly disappeared, replaced by blind spots they couldn't see through. On his captured scout ship, Captain Kim watched the battle with amazement. The Ghost Fleet ships seemed to flicker in and out of existence as they moved, and now they were firing weapons of pure blue light that the draft couldn't even see. "I've never seen ships like that," he said to Minji, who stood beside him. "Phase shift technology," she replied. "It was theoretical when we left Earth. They must have perfected it." The small scout ship approached the UES Vengeance. Admiral Lee's flagship was massive compared to the Pioneer. It had smooth, dark hull plates that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "This is Captain Kim requesting permission to dock," Kim said into the communication system. "Permission granted, Captain," came the reply. "Admiral Lee is waiting for you." Supreme Commander Vrek was running out of options. More than 2/3 of his fleet was now destroyed or disabled. The Ghost Fleet ships moved through his defenses as if they weren't there. And worst of all, his crews couldn't even see the blue weapons that were disabling their ships. "Sir, we're getting reports from all remaining ships," his second-in-command reported. "Our crews can't see the human weapons. They're firing blind." Vrek turned to his science officer. "How is this possible?" The science officer looked pale. "The humans must have discovered our visual weakness. They're using light frequencies we can't process." "And these ghost ships," Vrek said. "Explain those." "They seem to be using some kind of phase technology. They exist partly in another dimension. Our weapons pass through them when they shift phase." Vrek stared at the battle display. The remaining draft ships were being picked off one by one. His mighty fleet, which had conquered so many worlds, was being defeated by technology he couldn't even understand. Admiral Lee stood in the docking bay as Captain Kim and his crew stepped off the captured draft scout ship. Despite their days in captivity, they stood tall and proud. "Welcome back, Captain," Lee said, shaking Kim's hand. "Thank you for the rescue, Admiral," Kim replied. "Though it seems you brought quite a welcome party." Lee smiled slightly. The draft needed to learn that appearances can be deceiving. They walked together toward the bridge. Around them, the Vengeance hummed with power. It was nothing like the Pioneer. Where the Explorer ship had been built for science and discovery, the Vengeance was built for war. "What happens now?" Kim asked. "Now we finish this," Lee replied. "Commander Choi's Ghost Fleet has already destroyed most of their ships. We're preparing to disable the rest." As they reached the bridge, Lieutenant Park called out, "Admiral, the draft flagship is hailing us again." Lee nodded. "Put them through." Supreme Commander Vrek appeared on the screen. His normally gray skin now looked pale, almost white. "Admiral Lee," Vrek said, his voice strained, "I wish to discuss terms of surrender." Lee's face remained calm, but his eyes were hard. "You attacked without provocation. You took our people prisoner. You threatened our world." "We made a mistake," Vrek admitted. "We didn't understand what we were facing." "No," Lee agreed. "You didn't, and that was your greatest error." The battle was over. The Drath Empire, which had never known defeat, had finally met a power greater than themselves, and they had learned a valuable lesson. Never judge a species by a single ship. Admiral Lee stood tall on the bridge of the UES Vengeance. On the main screen, Supreme Commander Vrek waited for his response about surrender terms. Before we discuss surrender, Lee said, "I want to meet with you in person. You will come to my ship with 2 officers of your choice." Vrek hesitated, then nodded. "I accept." 1 hour later, a small draft shuttle docked with the Vengeance. Supreme Commander Vrek stepped onto the human ship, followed by his science officer and his second-in-command. They looked around in wonder at the advanced technology. Guards led them to a large meeting room, where Admiral Lee waited with Captain Kim and Commander Choi. "Welcome aboard the Vengeance," Lee said. His voice was calm but cold. Vrek took a seat across from the humans. "Your ships," he said, "they are unlike anything we have seen before. How is this possible? Your explorer vessel was so basic." Captain Kim smiled slightly. "The Pioneer was exactly what it claimed to be. An explorer ship. We don't send warships to make first contact." "But the technology gap," Vrek's voice trailed off. Commander Choi spoke up. "You assumed that was all we had. You saw one ship and thought you understood our entire civilization." Admiral Lee nodded. "That was your first mistake. How long have your people had this phase shift technology?" Vrek asked, looking at the Ghost Fleet ships visible through the window. "Long enough," Lee replied. "We don't share our military secrets with species that attack without provocation." Vrek's shoulders slumped. 12 worlds, he said quietly. "We conquered 12 worlds with our technology. None could stand against us. And you thought Earth would be the 13th, Kim said. "Yes." Vrek looked directly at Captain Kim. "How? Your species was supposed to be centuries behind us." Kim leaned forward. "That's where you were wrong. Humans have been watching the stars for a very long time. We detected your scout ships in our system 20 years ago." Vrek's black eyes widened in shock. "Impossible. Our stealth technology was good, but not good enough." Kim continued. "Instead of confronting you, we studied you. We learned your technology. We prepared. What you saw on the Pioneer wasn't our technology," Admiral Lee added. "It was what we wanted you to see." Vrek looked from Lee to Kim to Choi, finally understanding. "It was a test," he said. "You were testing us." Lee nodded. "Every new species we meet is tested. Those who approach with peace are welcomed as friends. Those who choose violence." He gestured to the defeated Drath fleet visible through the window. "What happens now?" Vrek asked, his voice quiet. Admiral Lee's face remained stern. "Now you have a choice. The Drath Empire ends today. But the Drath people can have a future." "What kind of future?" "One where you join the galactic community as equals, not conquerors," Lee replied. "Earth is not alone. We have allies, species who believe in cooperation rather than conquest." Vrek looked surprised again. "You have contacted other species before us." Lee nodded. "Many. Some are now our closest allies. Others, like you, chose the wrong path and paid the price." Commander Choi spoke up. "Your people have technology and knowledge that could benefit many worlds, but only if shared freely, not taken by force." Vrek was silent for a long moment. Then he looked at Captain Kim. "When you refused to give us Earth's coordinates, you knew this would happen." Kim smiled. "I knew Earth could defend itself. I knew our real fleet would come, and I knew that once you saw it, you would understand one important truth." "What truth?" Vrek asked. "That the universe is too big for any one species to conquer," Kim replied. "The only path forward is together." As Vrek considered these words, he looked out at the Ghost Fleet ships and the other advanced human vessels. For the first time in the history of the Drath Empire, they had met a power they could not defeat, a species they had completely underestimated. The moment the human fleet arrived, it was already over. But perhaps, Vrek thought, This ending could become a new beginning. 1 week after the battle, a new ship arrived in the system. It was smaller than the warships but more elegant. Its hull gleamed white against the blackness of space. This was the UES Harmony, a diplomatic vessel. Ambassador Su Jin Huang walked confidently through the corridors of the draft flagship. Unlike the military officers who had come before her, she wore no uniform. Her simple white dress and calm smile made her seem like a messenger of peace. Supreme Commander Vrek, now a leader without an empire, waited for her in what was once his command center. The room had been changed. The harsh purple lighting was replaced with a softer white light that both species could see comfortably. Ambassador Huang, Vrek said with a formal bow. "Thank you for coming." "Commander Vrek," she replied with a nod. "I'm here to discuss the future." They sat at a round table that had replaced Vrek's command chair. Captain Kim and Admiral Lee were also present, along with Vrek's remaining officers. The terms Admiral Lee mentioned, Vrek began. "I would like to hear them in full." Ambassador Huang placed a small device on the table. It projected a holographic image of the galaxy, with several points of light highlighted in different colors. "The blue points are human worlds," she explained. "The green are our allies, species who have joined what we call the Galactic Cooperative." "And the red?" Vrek asked, pointing to several red dots scattered throughout the galaxy. "Those are species who chose aggression over cooperation," Admiral Lee said. "Some no longer exist. Others have been contained to their home systems." Vrek's face showed worry. "And which color will the draft become?" Ambassador Huang smiled gently. "That is for you to decide. Earth offers you 2 paths forward." She touched the device, and the hologram changed to show the draft home system. "The first option is to join the cooperative. You would keep your autonomy but abandon conquest. You would share your technology and knowledge with other members, and they would share with you. The 12 worlds you conquered would be given the choice to join, leave, or become independent." "And the second option?" Vrek asked. The hologram changed again, showing the draft system surrounded by small dots. "Containment," Admiral Lee said. "You would be restricted to your home system. Monitoring stations would ensure you don't build warships or weapons of mass destruction again. Your conquered worlds would be freed immediately." The room was silent as Vrek and his officers considered the options. "Why would you show mercy?" Vrek finally asked. "You could destroy us completely. Your ghost fleet alone could reduce our worlds to ash." Captain Kim spoke up. "Because that's not who we are. Humans have a long history of war," Ambassador Huang explained. "We fought each other for centuries. We nearly destroyed ourselves more than once, but we learned from our mistakes." "What did you learn?" Vrek asked. "That revenge solves nothing," Admiral Lee said. "That cycles of violence only create more violence." Ambassador Huang nodded. "When we finally reached the stars, we made a promise. We would not bring our worst qualities into the galaxy. We would offer every species the chance to choose a better path." Vrek looked at his officers, then back at the humans. "Even those who attacked you without cause." "Especially them," Captain Kim said. "Our greatest strength isn't our technology, but our ability to learn from history." Vrek stood and walked to the window. The human fleet was still visible, a reminder of the draft's defeat. But perhaps, he thought, this defeat could lead to something better. He turned back to face the humans. "The draft have been conquerors for generations. We know no other way." He paused. "But perhaps it is time we learned." Ambassador Huang smiled. "Then welcome to the first day of a new era for your people." As the meeting continued, the stars shone outside the window. In the vastness of space, 2 species that had met in war were now talking of peace. The human fleet had arrived and ended the Drath Empire in a single day. But instead of destruction, they offered a new beginning. This, perhaps, was humanity's greatest strength. When their fleet arrived, the enemy realized it was already over. But it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something new.